A cold wind cuts across a dark Korean hill. A single Filipino soldier stands alone on the ridge. His breath is white in the air. His boots sink into frozen soil. He does not know how many enemies are coming. He only knows they are coming soon. Then a whisper from history breaks the silence. Did a Chinese general really say Filipinos could not fight? Did he truly believe they would run the moment a real battle came? If he did, he was about to face a truth so powerful, so unexpected, that it would shake commanders across the Korean front. Because on a terrifying night in April 1951, 900 Filipino soldiers would stand against more than 5,000 Chinese troops. And what happened next would become one of the most incredible battles ever recorded. This is how an insult became a legend. The Korean War was already burning when the Philippines sent its fighters. They were called PEFTOK, the Philippine Expeditionary Force to Korea. Most of them were young. Most had never seen snow, and none of them expected to face an enemy this huge. Chinese commanders had a belief, unfair and dangerous, that Asian troops under the UN were weak, especially the Filipinos. One captured note even said, "Filipino soldiers will withdraw when heavily attacked." This was not just arrogance. It was a mistake that would cost them dearly. April 22, 1951. On Yultong Ridge, the 10th Battalion Combat Team, less than 900 men, dug deep into the icy ground. At the same moment, across the dark valley, more than 5,000 Chinese soldiers waited with rifles, grenades, and bayonets. Two forces, one hill. No escape route. The Filipinos check their weapons. They share silent looks. Some whisper prayers. Others think of the Philippines, of warm mornings, family faces, and home-cooked meals. But they stand firm. Little do they know, the enemy commander expects them to break in 1 hour. He has no idea what Filipino courage looks like. At 10 p.m., the sky suddenly flashes white. Chinese artillery fires the first shots. Shells explode across the ridge. Trees burst apart. Snow and dirt fly into the air. The ground shakes like thunder. Then, just as quickly, silence. A single horn blows. The first Chinese wave begins. Hundreds of enemy soldiers charge uphill, shouting battle cries, firing their fast burp guns, and throwing grenades. The Chinese are sure their numbers alone will break the Filipinos. But the Filipinos do not run. Rifles fire, machine guns rattle, grenades explode, turning the hillside into a storm of fire and dirt. The first wave fails to break the line. The Chinese did not expect this. They expected fear. Instead, they found resistance. By midnight, the battlefield turns into a nightmare. The second wave hits. Bigger, louder, faster. Visibility drops. The only light comes from explosions. Enemy shadows rush forward, then vanish. Filipino soldiers fight in trenches, behind rocks, even kneeling in the snow. They fire until their rifles burn hot. They fight until their arms shake. A surviving PEFTOK soldier that moment said, "It felt like the night had teeth." They came so close you could smell their uniforms. We used bayonets, rifle butts, anything. I remember thinking, if this is where we fall, then we fall fighting. By 2 a.m., parts of the Filipino line begin to crumble. Company B is almost surrounded. One squad has only 6 bullets left. Another squad is using captured Chinese weapons because their own guns are empty. Some soldiers continue fighting even with cuts, burns, and frozen hands. But no one leaves their post. The Chinese commander receives reports saying the Filipinos are weakening. He believes victory is close, but he does not understand. He does not know what it means for Filipinos to fight side by side. He does not understand that hunger, cold, and fear cannot crush a soldier who refuses to give up. The 10th BCT sends a final message to headquarters. Holding, will not withdraw. At 3 a.m., the Chinese prepare to strike with everything they have. 3 regiments, thousands of men, move to end the Filipino line once and for all. This should have been the moment the Filipinos fell back. Instead, something impossible happens. Major Dionisio Ojeda orders a counterattack. His men stare for a second, exhausted, freezing, bleeding. But then they charge. Filipino soldiers burst out of the trenches and sprint downhill into the enemy attack. Shouting, firing. Throwing grenades with every last ounce of strength. The Chinese troops stop in shock. They expected to chase Filipinos, not be chased by them. A U.S. officer watching from a nearby sector later wrote, "I have never seen anything like that. They charged like warriors from another time." The counterattack pushes the Chinese back and buys precious minutes of survival. Dawn approaches, but the battle is not over. The Chinese unleash one more attack, the biggest one yet. Tired, cold, and almost out of ammunition, the Filipinos brace for the final blow. And once again, they hold. Machine guns roar even with overheated barrels. Rifle fire cuts through the early morning fog. Grenadiers on the slope time each throw perfectly. The Chinese charge again, and again, and again. But the Filipinos no longer fight for survival. They fight because they refuse to let the hill fall. They fight because they know their stand protects thousands of UN soldiers behind them. They fight because Yultong Ridge is not just land, it is honor. By 7 a.m., the Chinese retreat. More than 5,000 attackers could not break 900 Filipinos. The ridge still belongs to PEFTOK. When American officers finally reach the site, they expect to find a destroyed battalion. Instead, they see Filipino soldiers still in formation, still holding rifles, still guarding the ridge. Around them lie the heavy casualties of the enemy assault. One American general whispers, "How did they survive this?" Another simply says, "The Filipinos are lions." Across UN lines, whispers turn into admiration. South Korean commanders praise them. American reports highlight their bravery. Other Asian units hear the story and cheer. The Chinese general who once said Filipinos could not fight? History records no statement from him, but silence is sometimes the loudest answer. The Battle of Yultong becomes more than a victory. It becomes a message. A message that courage is not based on size. A message that underdogs can become legends. A message that the Filipino fighter is not to be underestimated. PEFTOK's stand slows down the massive Chinese spring offensive. Their defense gives the UN time to reorganize. Their bravery helps protect Seoul, and their loyalty saves thousands of allied lives. Today, Korea has not forgotten. Every year, South Koreans place flowers at the Filipino Memorial Stone. They bow to honor the men who fought for a country not their own. Because without their stand at Yultong Ridge, Korea's future would have been very different. So we return to the question, did a Chinese general really believe Filipinos could not fight? Maybe he did. Maybe he saw only a small number, 900, and thought they would break. But numbers cannot measure bravery. Numbers cannot measure loyalty. Numbers cannot measure the Filipino spirit. On that frozen ridge, 900 Filipinos stood against more than 5,000 enemies. And when the smoke cleared, it was the Filipinos who still stood. Their story is not just history, it is a reminder. That courage can come from the smallest nations. That strength can come from the most unexpected places. And that the Filipino heart, when pushed to the edge, is unbreakable. This is Yultong Ridge. This is PEFTOK. This is Filipino courage. Subscribe to Holistic News Expo for more untold stories of heroism, history, and the brave souls who never back down.